In the city of San Francisco, in 1955, a baby boy was born and soon adopted by a simple, loving couple, Paul and Clara Jobs. They named him Steve Jobs. From the very beginning, Steve was curious and different from other children. He loved taking things apart, understanding how they worked. His father taught him basic electronics in the family garage. Little did anyone know, that small garage would later become the birthplace of a company that changed the world. Steve was intelligent but rebellious. School felt like a cage to him. He believed in learning by doing, not just reading books. As he grew older, he enrolled at Reed College, but soon faced financial problems. His parents could not afford the expensive tuition. After just one semester, Steve dropped out. But he didn't stop learning. He slept on friends' floors, collected soda bottles for money, and attended classes he found interesting, like calligraphy. These lessons in design would later inspire Apple's unique style. During his young adult years, Steve's passion for electronics grew stronger. He reconnected with an old friend, Steve Wozniak, a brilliant computer engineer. Together, in the Jobs family garage, they dreamed of making computers small and affordable for everyone. With limited resources and big dreams, they worked day and night. Steve sold his Volkswagen van. Wozniak sold his calculator. They used that money to start their company, Apple. In 1976, Apple was born. At first, they assembled computers by hand, selling them to local computer shops. But Steve had a vision. Computers should not just be for experts, they should be for everyone. His energy, determination, and perfectionism pushed Apple forward. Soon their first product, the Apple I, was followed by the Apple II, a major success. But success came with challenges. As Apple grew, so did tensions. Steve, still young and impulsive, faced difficulties in managing people. His intense personality created enemies as well as loyal followers. Yet through all this, one thing remained clear. Steve Jobs was determined to change the world. Apple, once a small dream in a garage, was now a growing company. Steve Jobs, still in his 20s, was seen as a young genius. But inside Apple, not everything was perfect. Steve's passion for perfection made him difficult to work with. He pushed people hard, often too hard. His ideas were big, but sometimes the company needed stability more than vision. By the early 1980s, Steve led the development of the Macintosh. He wanted it to be simple, beautiful, and different from anything the world had seen. However, delays, budget overruns, and Steve's demanding leadership caused tension inside Apple. The Macintosh did launch, but it did not meet sales expectations. Steve's leadership was questioned. In 1985, something happened that changed Steve Jobs' life. The very company he had created decided to remove him from power. Apple's board of directors believed that Steve was hurting the company more than helping it. They forced him out. Steve was heartbroken. Imagine being thrown out of your own company. He felt lost, confused, and betrayed. For the first time, Steve faced the reality that hard work and passion might not always lead to success. He later said it was the best thing that happened to him, but at that moment, it felt like the end. Many thought Steve Jobs would disappear from the tech world. But deep inside, Steve's fire was not gone. He decided to start again. He created a new company called Next, focusing on high-end computers for education. He also bought a small animation studio called Pixar. Even as he tried to build Next, challenges followed. Next computers were too expensive. Sales were poor. People questioned Steve's ability to succeed again. Yet, Steve refused to give up. He continued working, learning from his mistakes, and focusing on what he believed in, creating technology that changed lives. This period of rejection, failure, and loneliness became known as the dark years of Steve Jobs. But deep within these struggles, something powerful was growing, a stronger, wiser Steve Jobs, ready for his greatest comeback. Years passed. Next was not a success, but Steve Jobs kept moving forward. At Pixar, something unexpected happened. He turned the small animation studio into a creative powerhouse. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the world's first full-length computer-animated movie. It became a massive hit. Steve had helped change not just computers, but now the film industry too. Meanwhile, back at Apple, things were not going well. Without Steve's vision, Apple was struggling. Its products failed to excite customers. The company was losing money and nearing bankruptcy. In 1997, Apple made a surprising decision. They bought Next, bringing Steve Jobs back. Steve returned to the company he had once created, the company that had pushed him out. But this time, he was different. He had matured. His years at Next and Pixar had taught him valuable lessons about leadership and patience. Taking control, Steve made bold changes. He simplified Apple's product line, focusing on quality over quantity. He inspired the team to think differently. In 1998, Apple released the iMac, a stylish computer that became a hit. But Steve wasn't satisfied. He wanted to revolutionize more than just computers. Next came the iPod in 2001, a small music player that changed how people listened to music. Then the iTunes Store transformed how people bought music. Apple was no longer just a computer company. It was becoming a leader in personal technology. But Steve's greatest idea was yet to come. In 2007, he introduced the iPhone, calling it a combination of a phone, a music player, and an internet device. People were amazed. The iPhone didn't just change phones, it changed communication itself. Steve Jobs had returned to Apple as a fallen leader. Now he stood as the visionary who saved the company and reshaped the world of technology. His journey from failure to triumph was complete. Yet behind the scenes, Steve was quietly battling a personal fight against a rare form of cancer. Still, even as his health weakened, he kept working, determined to leave a lasting legacy. By 2010, Apple had become one of the most valuable companies in the world. Steve Jobs, once a dropout working from a garage, was now the face of global innovation. Yet behind the success, his health was failing. He had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a rare and aggressive disease. Still, Steve refused to give up. He believed in working until the very end. Even during treatment, he kept leading Apple. He introduced the iPad in 2010, once again changing the technology world. People everywhere admired his courage, strength, and endless creativity. His famous words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," inspired millions to never settle and to keep searching for their passion. Steve knew his time was limited. In 2011, he stepped down as Apple's CEO, saying he could no longer meet his duties. He spent his final days quietly with his family, especially his wife Lauren and their children. On October 5th, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. The world mourned. Millions of people who had never met him felt the loss deeply. His products had touched their lives. Apple stores around the world were filled with messages, flowers, and tributes. But Steve Jobs' story did not end with his death. His legacy lives on in every iPhone, iPad, and Mac. More than his products, his way of thinking changed the world. He taught people to believe in their ideas, to accept failures as lessons, and to stay determined even in darkness. Steve Jobs showed that being different is a strength. He proved that a college dropout with big dreams could build a multi-billion-dollar company through hard work, passion, and refusing to quit. From the small garage in California to the stages where he introduced life-changing products, Steve Jobs' life journey remains a story of struggle, determination, and ultimate success. His words echo forever. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And so the story of Steve Jobs reminds us all, hardship is not the end. It is often just the beginning.